There is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. Bitcoin is probably rat poison squared.
All right, welcome everybody. Super happy Dragon Lucky, episode 0x37. That's the 56th episode for those of you who love coding and hex. So how's it going, Rocco?
Good. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm all right. How's the weather there?
Oh, it's just started to rain a little bit, but it already actually went away. In Florida, it rains for 2 minutes and then it goes away. It's crazy, but I love it here.
That's right. Okay, so this week we have updates to the site. Go check it out. Give us any feedback. There's a lot of new pieces in there. A couple of case studies that are very important that we're going to start focusing on a lot. And we're rolling out a lot of the product pages and description of some of the tech that's a little, particularly more friendly to enterprise, more friendly to business, that we can attract some eyeballs and get some. It tends, that's how we're getting a lot more interest where we are, is when it's explained in a way that isn't just blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. It's very much about, here are the things that can be done. Do you need those done?
Makes sense, yeah.
So that's good stuff. And marketing team's doing an amazing job at that. So really happy there. The next update is on Den, and we wanted to point out the language layers. We've had the first month of that program where it is a very Dragonchain specific thing, but it's based on these various communities, either regional or language based. Like say Portuguese, as an example, or Spanish, that basically will translate announcements of Dragonchain, translate anything important, or in particular anything that might be interesting to them in that community, and that there's a pool. So if you have, and there have been some people that have reached out to me on Telegram for a couple of different languages that, this is the path now. So it's a way that we can actually reward, and there's some competition there. The more people you bring in, or the more content that you produce there, the more you will get. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, now you're like scaling in languages. I love it. You're just taking it to another level.
Yes. And so far it's been amazing because we already have the, and this is something that will very much bore the person that is transcribing this very thing that I'm saying right now. But that, we already have a set of people that transcribe this entire show, and then those are filtered into these language layers. And that was specifically because we had a lot of people that weren't English as a primary. So yeah. It's a really cool thing. I'd like to get it all rolled into the YouTube side too, but that's more work, so we'll see. But anyway, we're also working on a few other things that hopefully will roll out soon. Some people know about some of them. There are some things in Den that are coming. There are some things, Dragonchain itself coming. So pretty cool. Then we have the scaling tweet. And this is very much, let's see here, an interesting point that I wanted to kind of highlight to get feedback on. And, we're going to probably do some things around this because it's a little bit hard to describe, right? That everybody in crypto is focused on scaling, particularly with Ethereum right now, right? And with the
definitely
really high fees, a lot of congestion in the network. And that's what happens with success. It's good. They need to fix their scaling issue. We have some ideas around that, but I'm not going to get in their business unless they ask, and they won't ask. But there are definitely some things they could solve. I'm an architect. I know what could be solved there. And, there might be some things that they'd have to decide, oh, we don't want to do that, so forget that. But on the other hand, this idea, maybe we could make that work. So there's some definitely very interesting things around that. But this was this tweet here was basically me answering a question of someone that turned into a kind of a thread, because it is Twitter. And at the very end, I realized, you know what, I've never made this point explicitly, which is that, you know, we're all about scale. We're all about security and, you know, protection business data. Those are in our primary core architectural goals. And, you know, because they're all about how do we get this technology to be adopted by real businesses, you know, real world stuff. It's not just, you know, crypto kitties and, you know, games and, you know, this is about, you know, how can we use this in the real world to solve real problems and get those companies to adopt it. And so the scaling is obvious. Everybody wants more transactions per second. Everyone wants less congestion. And, you know, we have a lot of angles on that. Very much architectural abstractions is what I call them, but it's basically little points that you can flip levers and adjust stuff for an implementation. So we've, in my opinion, answered all of those scaling issues multiple times from multiple different angles. I think we've proven that out. But the thing we've never really talked about is the fact that, at least in that same conversation, the fact that it's a really easy thing. Maybe not easy, but it's a doable thing. You know, others have done some level of scaling. I still think we beat them all, but you know, we love all the other projects too. And you know, to get to multiple Visa volume over a long period is a big deal, but it's an entirely different thing to do that same scaling without blowing up fees, without outrageous fees and network congestion, right? And so that's something that I kind of want to start, you know, communicating out there, because it is radically important. If you have a business person that says, okay, you know, you've convinced me this is important. I want this on chain for proof, but you know, what's it going to cost me? And when you realize that, oh, they're going to put 1 million transactions a day on, all of a sudden, you know, on Ethereum, it's going to at least double, because that's their daily right now, peak generally. That's going to max. It's going to really kill the fees. And worse, as I've even seen very recently, it's going to make it impossible to get transactions on chain, that I can't even send stuff on Ethereum occasionally now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, and that's, you know, a lot of that is sometimes me just hoping that, okay, the suggested fee is going to be good enough. And then it's like 5 days, you know, that literally, you know, so anyway, it's interesting. So that's that. So those are the announcements this week. We have a couple of things. We wanted to get a couple of things in this week, but they won't be rolled out for another you know, day or two. So we're going to push a couple of things to next week that are pretty cool. But we're going to come right back with our guests after this little spot here.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
That's my favorite commercial.
It's good, right? It's
unbelievable.
I heard it too much.
Goosebumps.
So funny. So funny. Okay, so we're back with our guests, Alex, Elizabeth, and Sloane. And so I'm going to go through here. Alex, can you pronounce your last name real quick?
Yeah, Masmej. Actually, my real name is Masmejean because I'm French. and I live like pretty much 90% of my life in France. But I cut it, and somehow it sounds Polish, but I'm French.
Right on. That's good. Okay, so introduce yourself. You recently tokenized yourself, right? So tell us more.
Sure. So I've been building applications in crypto for the past year, in DeFi, so finance, DAO, like the way we do organizations, NFT, the unique assets, and more recently, I have done my personal token, Alex, which basically I've done many experiments with, ranging from like the first initial Alex offering, where like a very little amount I fundraised against my future income in the next 3 years. And then I've done some personal token voting where people could vote on my daily habit in July. Or I have like a newsletter, a Telegram group chat that is only accessible to Alex holders. And it's not my career. Like, I'm a founder in crypto, but this was a very funny experiment that I'm continuing, and I can actually leverage all the new DeFi, liquidity mining and all of these new innovations to my token. So it's like I'm having fun and I'm battle testing the real use cases of crypto with my funny lightweight token. So I really like it.
Nice. What's the supply?
The supply, you mean like the details of the token? So there's 10 million tokens.
Okay.
It's vested 200,000 a month to me, and then I choose to distribute it however I want. There's many ways I'm doing it.
All right, very good. Okay, and then Sloane and Elizabeth, you deal with crypto taxes at Complexities, right?
Yeah, we do. So I got into crypto in 2012 and had a really hard go at making sure my taxes were compliant. And I've known Elizabeth's son for 15 years.
Yeah.
And reached out to her knowing she's a CPA to help me. And together we formed this intricate bond of going through the nuance of how the IRS may or may not treat things like airdrops and hard forks and unreleased ICO investments and thefts of tokens, and the whole myriad of different transaction types resulted in a immaculate spreadsheet that she constructed with the thousands of records that I had accumulated. And we realized that I certainly was not alone in needing help with this, and wanted to build something that was, at least slightly as good
Scalable.
as her brain was capable of doing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so first topic, and we'll go through topics, and I'll just reach out, and you can kind of, answer broadly however you want. So first up, crypto taxes, and so Alex, did you ever consider making yourself tax exempt in this whole process?
Oh my God, I am the worst person to ask about taxes. So funny enough, next year I think is the first year I will pay tax on crypto that I off ramp, because that's like the regulation in France. So you are taxed on your profit in crypto, and I actually only started making money ever in my life 6 months ago. And so that's very funny, because I have very little experience with taxes. I've had a gig with a marketing crypto firm that I've done as entrepreneur. That's a special status in France. Anyway, so I cannot speak. I know that Elizabeth and Sloane probably know 1,000x, 1,000,000,000x more than I do.
Right. Okay, and then for Complexities, how broad are the crypto taxes applied? Because we have NFTs now. We have the all of the DeFi pieces. We have various staking, scoring mechanisms. You obviously have some of the more traditional things like energy costs and things like that are probably a little easier. But what are your thoughts about that? How do you keep in front of it?
Well, there are so many. You've got ordinary income, which is like what you were talking about, mining. If somebody's doing mining, that's ordinary income. They can write off some of their expenses for electricity, et cetera. If you get paid in crypto tax, or in cryptocurrency, then, you pay that at a regular rate. But, then when you sell that cryptocurrency, you've got capital gains and losses, short-term, long-term. It gets pretty crazy. And with the DeFi and margin trading, now you're talking about interest income. You're talking about investment interest expense, compounding with the capital gains and losses. So, yeah,
Wow.
it becomes kind of crazy.
That's good. So, and then, and how about foreign? I mean, because have you dealt? I know you've done U.S., I assume, but could you help out Alex?
On the forks?
Oh, foreign.
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 That part. No, I'm sorry, but I really do wish I knew about French tax because I'd go over there and visit. Write it all.
To be honest, I think the French tax system is not the best in Europe. I think Portugal is very crypto friendly, and I think there's a 0% tax.
Yeah, well, it does change. I know Switzerland has a really good tax bracket, and Great Britain has like an 11,000 something deduction or what do you call it, floor. So it's interesting. Each one of them handles it differently. I do know that if you're in Germany and you hold it for more than a year, then you don't owe taxes on it.
Yeah, surely. And the crypto space in Germany is pretty big anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a fun topic to stay abreast of, because not only do you have international considerations, you have a constant stream of new types of transactions that are looking to get around who knows what, right?
Yeah.
DeFi being the hottest new thing right now. It's been around for a while, but the explosion of it has really forced the hand of a lot of the people like Elizabeth to apply existing tax law in a way that makes sense here. And like she mentioned, interest income and things like that associated with mining, it's all part of existing rules that the IRS in particular, who we listen to a lot with our product, has just simply not provided enough guidance on. So we got to make some leaps and bounds to assume how it's going to go.
And NFTs are probably pretty simple, right? Because that's just an asset. So, you sold it for this much. I don't care what it is. It could be, it doesn't matter. It's an asset. So if it's enough, you declare it, whatever, right?
Correct. That's the easiest one.
Yeah. And so here's a question for you. And I know you have no control over this, but like, say you think early internet, they specifically said, we're not going to tax it because it would make it so complex for a fledgling, little industry. And yet crypto, for some reason, is like, nope, we're going to tax it as soon as we learn about it, right? What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting. There's a couple of attorneys, Justin Wales with Carlton Fields, who talks about this, who actually feels like it's it conflicts with our First Amendment for that particular reason, because they have made it so complex so that people are not able to participate in this particular technology. Because, let's get down to it. What other people don't understand sometimes is that if you use cryptocurrency to pay for a cup of coffee, you actually are supposed to calculate your capital gain or loss on that cup of coffee. It gets pretty nuts. So, and then also, let's take that one step further. With the new 1040, they moved the virtual currency question to the first page. So you have to answer that question. Have you received any assets? Have you, for payment? And everyone has to answer that. So what is virtual currency? Does that also include rewards on your credit card? Does that include, skins that young people use for their games? That's a digital asset. It can, I know one CPA is saying everyone should just answer yes.
Well, it's the funniest thing that we actually, in our conversations with the SEC, have actually even brought that up, that skins in games are no different than tokens in cryptocurrency. And why are we having to talk to them and not the gaming companies?
Exactly.
I'll tell you why. But it is very much that it's we modeled a software license before any of this stuff happened. 2017, we said, look, this is most obviously to us a software license. We're a platform. That's what it is. And it was a really unique angle on it. We haven't even patented, right? So it's part of the U.S. government agrees with us. But that's interesting. Okay. Next up, U.S. Postal Service blockchain-based voting system. So I did look at the patent, right? And patent. I'm not an expert, but I can read them, and I've done a lot there before. But it's interesting because they put out a patent, and I think it's provisional. I didn't get to look in absolute depth, but it focuses definitely on identity, on the ballot itself, and on the election itself. And it's very interesting that it doesn't it talks about using an app, not actually sending mail, which I thought was funny, because I thought it was going to be, here's there's a system to use the mail to do this thing that we want to happen, but it was still mobile app based. So what are you guys' thoughts? Like, say, Alex, if, in particular, if you had a voting mechanism, so you decide, people can decide what you're going to eat for dinner, you know, and you have certain things, and maybe you have a couple of things. Okay, I will eat this or this, you know. At what level do you care about? You know, there's secret ballot questions. There's auditability. Is everyone, you know, was my vote counted because I want him to have the chicken? What do you think?
Yeah, I think voting can be definitely one of the killer app of blockchain. Yeah. I think when anyone discovers the industry, we always understand intuitively the supply chain / counterfeit aspect of it, and so it makes sense. But as you said, like, it's kind of weird that we are using mail, such an old technology, for blockchain, like cutting edge stuff. Why not directly go and like have a proper DID system for people to register the DID, then register the vote, and so they don't have to do the whole mail-in. That's really a hassle for most Americans. So that's my take.
And maybe they would end up replacing themselves. I mean, in all truth, you know, for people who don't want to
right. So USPS would disrupt themselves for the mailing voting that they know some other company is going to snap up otherwise.
Yeah, and they might not need. We don't need physical mail anymore, really. I mean, except when it's when you're shipping something like a T-shirt or a thing, you know. But for a letter, it's actually very inefficient. So who knows? And how? So we talked about Elizabeth and Sloane. We talked in that about decentralized identity because we think that is the solution for voting because it allows you to still have a secret ballot. Yet allow from 3 different angles. You have a secret ballot. You have the user the voter who can, without exposing themselves, still prove that they are a registered voter who is eligible to vote in this district and whatever else in this election. And then from the outside, that anyone in the public could actually run a script and audit the election immediately. You know, that everybody could see that everybody's eligible. The votes were cast as on chain, and proof of who won. How does that affect taxes? Because I would think there's going to be something in there too.
No, I wouldn't think it would affect taxes. I think, like you said, the KYC here. Know your customer. Basically, make sure whoever's on that app actually is a registered voter. My concern would be making sure that we got it to the people who were not as tech savvy. You know, we're so into this particular technology. It's very easy to us to say, hey, this is great. But, you know, for the average consumer, it would be a little bit of a challenge. So there would definitely be a learning curve there for them to be able to get onto it, understand it, use it.
Yeah, and there are ways around that. So, yeah.
I wonder as well how the USPS would perceive making their own blockchain, because they're going to be very intently aware of the security of this, and they'll probably want a massive amount of hashing power to prevent, hacking and double spending, depending on the type of blockchain that they create. And if they tether onto Dragonchain, which connects to Bitcoin and Ethereum, or go straight to Ethereum and build an app on top of that, then you run the risk of somebody associating what they thought was a completely anonymous wallet with anonymous financial transactions now being associated with voting that has their KYC accompanying it. So there's a
poll tax. You think about it. If you had a nationwide election, you have 100 million people, say, I don't know how many of age adults are in the U.S. But that hundreds of millions of people voting would end up being a poll tax. So at least with Dragonchain, the U.S. government could afford to put that many transactions on chain. Yeah. And to secure them to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yeah, that's a really good point. And then the fact that you need all those components. You have to have these decentralized identity, and you have to have the security for those votes themselves. And probably the most important thing is that it has to be friendly to everyone. Do not have to be tech savvy to do it. It would be the main point. And you would therefore probably have to have kiosks that you could go to your either district, wherever you vote, or in the Midwest, it was always like a church or something. You go to a church and they'd have if you're a Democrat, go over here, if you're a Republican, go over there, and always interesting. So anyway, that's really good, and I don't know, I'm hopeful, at least.
Me too.
The only other thing to consider here too, though, is some resistance at the government level. Those that think that Bitcoin and Ethereum are, not exactly the best.
Oh yeah. But that's why you really talk to them about capabilities, right? And when they are interested, or when they hand it over to their engineers, can you vet this? That they delve in. But at the very beginning, I mean, I know even at Disney, I was blown away that we convinced them to do the the interchain with Bitcoin at Disney. I mean, and we had a couple of people that said, well, aren't they involved in, isn't the Bitcoin CEO involved in, this or that? And I was like, well, no, and it's an open system. Anybody could use anything that we put out for really bad things, but, we have to, most people don't. We have to hope it's all in the up and up. And at the same time, these are the reasons. It's because of that security. When we told them that, this is the largest compute concern on Earth, Bitcoin. And, you combine it with Ethereum, and it's just radical. It's almost unimaginable, the amount of power there. Mm-hmm. And then you say, and we can access this for pennies on the dollar, pennies on the millions of dollars, actually. So then they kind of said, they opened up, and it's pretty much that. You kind of have to talk to them from the capability side first, and then you roll it into, here are here's how it works, the details. Okay, next up, Ripple argues that China can reverse Bitcoin transactions. So first of all, although it is feasibly possible, it would be totally economically not viable. It would be the dumbest thing ever. Which governments and politicians do dumb things occasionally, often, but it would be tremendously expensive to do it. Now, in cases, if you're like, say, if you use Dragonchain and you had a piece of, you had your tank plans or your some weapon system, and the blueprints were on chain, and maybe there would be a reason if they had somebody on the inside, they could steal it, and somebody then basically go and maybe talk to CZ at Binance about, hey, we need these Bitcoin transactions rolled back. If you remember, I think you can do that. It's not very feasible. So what do you think, Alex? Is this?
I don't know. It seems like a ridiculous statement to me. I don't think it's feasible to do that. Also, they might have the funds to do it, but the thing is, I think some exchanges like Coinbase or Binance are prepared for such attacks, and so would kind of fight it, and it would be an arms race that they would probably lose. And if they do, it's such a devastating loss. And then I think Ripple is just I'm really bearish on Ripple, really. I don't think their use case makes too much sense. I think the stablecoin format is right now on OMG, like layer 2 network, or Ethereum, or I don't know. I just don't see any use of Ripple. And if it's private banking transactions, then maybe the JP Morgan coin is handling that as well. So what is Ripple or Stellar, for that matter, useful for? That's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the bank. It's the banker's coin. So that's
right. It's the banker's coin, but it doesn't even go up in value. That's what? No. It's been the same.
It's the weirdest thing too, because it is very much. I mean, this is FUD. This is anti-Bitcoin FUD for Ripple and whoever they're targeting. So that's what it is. But
they have great PR. That's I'll give you that.
So Elizabeth and Sloane, what do you guys think about? No, I guess two questions. So and you don't have to answer everything in terms of the taxes, but how would, and imagine if we had an attack on Bitcoin, trying to reverse it. I'd already paid my taxes. What happens? What happens? Because all this, I guess, it'd be a lost issue, right? Yeah.
Well, you got to think about the fallout, the economic fallout that would arise there. If you already paid your taxes on a certain gain of crypto, then you have a massive opportunity here. If Bitcoin crashes into infinity, that you could then make a few smart transactions and then completely reverse any capital gains that you may have on other tokens.
Or at least do a loss farming type thing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Some tax loss harvesting if you're
Okay.
you know, if you're exposed to that kind of feature, depending on your jurisdiction.
Maybe
But-
that's Ripple's angle.
You know, I'm with you guys. I think the FUD that this article in particular is trying to generate is going to land on a lot of deaf ears. I'm surprised I didn't even see this article as somebody who's involved in the space, but
Yeah, my guys, I hadn't seen it, and my guys brought it up, and I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy, you know. And we have, you know, the potential for an attack is interesting enough. You know, it's happened to Ethereum Classic a few times. It's happened to Bitcoin early on. If you remember, I was actually mining Bitcoin on, I think it was CEX, which I think is based in the Netherlands, if I remember right. And they were actively telling people to not mine in their farms to avoid the 51% potential, right? And I remember Bitcoin crashed back then because of that, and I can't remember what the price was. It was pretty crazy low at the time, but that's always interesting to me. And we have a couple of things that we don't have built out yet, but for proofs in the edge of edge cases, you know, which is the extremely sensitive info, you know, that you have on chain that we're working on. But this would be one of the attacks. If you had, you know, something where war is about to break out and China decides, okay, well, we're going to attack Bitcoin. Who knows? I don't think that it's embedded enough in society right now to really that would be a viable thing. But in the future, it definitely could be, especially if you have voting systems and you have supply chains on it. You could attack a network and really screw stuff up for a while. But it might be easier for them to just attack the power grid. You know, who knows? It's going to hit the same stuff anyway. Okay, next up, we have an IMF video was just released, and it was an educational crypto video. I've not watched it yet, so we're going to watch it here. All right, and we're gonna comment on it. We're gonna talk about it. Okay? All right, so here we go.
This is so fun. I love this.
Okay, here we go.
I love this show.
When we buy or sell things, the payment is usually processed by a bank or credit card company. Problem number one, the companies often take a cut of the transaction. Two, we have to trust these companies to protect our sensitive data from hackers. Three, most international payments take a long time and are expensive. To solve these problems, we could use a special currency that is secure and based on the science of cryptography, which is a way of protecting information using mathematics. This special type of currency is called a cryptocurrency and only exists in computer networks. When you send someone this special currency, the money goes directly to them, removing the middleman. And at the same time, the transaction is broadcast to the entire network and recorded in a permanent way, which means it's almost impossible to fool the system. Costs of making payments are lower, transactions are faster, especially across countries, and even those people around the globe who don't have bank accounts can buy or sell goods and participate in the global economy. However, there are some risks. The transactions in most cryptocurrencies are anonymous. Some cryptocurrencies can even be untraceable. This can make it easier for the bad guys to make payments without being noticed. If you lose your password, you could lose all your money. At the moment, cryptocurrencies are highly volatile. They can't process large amounts of transactions quickly yet, and they're not even widely accepted. But if we can counter the risks, then this new technology, or some variation of it, can completely change the way we sell, buy, save, invest, and pay our bills. And who knows, this could be the next step in the evolution of money.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Right.
So given that, Elizabeth and Sloane, how valuable is that to your customers, to the fact that it is trying to approach a more normal audience, right? What do you think?
It's misleading, and I'll tell you why. Because they make it seem like another currency, but the IRS has said that cryptocurrency is a property, and that's why you have to calculate capital gains and losses. And that's why when people use it to buy a sofa on, overstock.com or buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks, they don't realize that they've got to calculate capital gains or losses on it. And what people don't understand is that they don't record that on their tax returns. The IRS could come back and say that you fraudulently filed your tax return. And if they wanted to chase it down, send you to jail for 5 years and charge you $250,000. So it's a little too simplified and it's a little misleading for that reason.
Alex, are you ready to move to the US?
Yes, I want to move to the US, but this video is so funny. Like, oh my God, I love this show. Like, I didn't watch that video, but I saw so many comments and reactions by saying, they're describing the very thing like crypto wants to replace. One, and then like this video should be made in 2017, right? This is like basic stuff that in most people which are a little bit tech savvy, like we know about the public ledger stuff, right? Since 2017, the mainstream breakout. So you're like 3 years late, and I think the 10,000 likes is ironic. Like people like are outstanded by the level of like they're so late to the game, and they're proud of it.
Yes, that's the way it is. All is.
I found some of the graphics and animations they used to be a little bit laughable too. The way they showed like the middleman coming in was them adding a block in the middle of a chain. It was a little bit
It's always
could be better.
Okay.
Visualization. By the way, visualization in of concepts in this industry is nowhere near where it needs to be. Because it's like and it's extremely abstract. It's like how do you visualize or put in front of someone and this concept that is not does not manifest itself into reality. It is literally an idea, and math tying that idea so that you can you have access. You're the only one that can actually affect a certain thing. It's kind of crazy. So it's hard anyway. But yeah, I mean, if they got this stuff wrong, which the fact that they do treat it purely as a currency, I halfway was expecting them to say that, and there are no fees, right? Because you think about it, we're getting rid of the middleman. There should be no. It's like, oh well,
there's still fees.
There's still fees. So it really, the funny thing is, it kind of points to. I mean, a lot of people use that, especially in the early days of Bitcoin. I mean, I've successfully sent a Bitcoin transaction way back with 0 fee, right? Because you could do it before, right? It was there was not enough competition, so it would get in the block. But and back then a lot of people say, oh, the fees are crazy low, that and now that's less so. But the real bit of it is really liberty. In the end, that's the key and the biggest and most important capability use case that there is in this industry. And it's like somehow because the commodities guys want to make it a commodity. The IRS wants whatever they can tax most, and the securities guys want to say it's a security. And so theoretically, instead of saying we're going to choose one of them, or we're going to let the currency itself or the token itself decide, maybe that we're going to model it as this, which means when you buy it, it's a thing, and when you sell it, it's a thing. Instead, they're just saying it's all of them. It's all of them. So it's the worst possible. So you have to know it's like the lobbyists and the lawyers and all of the competing industries that are in on this, making it the worst spot. What do you think, Rocco?
Yes. How about, do you like the Space Invaders bit, by the way? Are they targeting a certain age group? Because that was like
I wonder if that's public domain too. I wonder if they legally use that, because I would think that who owns those little shapes, right?
But it's funny. It was such like a childish video type. Like
very weird.
It's like they're 3. I don't know how many years late. Right?
Well, and they just did what was it, like three months ago? They just did a whole paper. I think Accenture or either Deloitte or Accenture paid for it. I mean, it was a consulting ad, but it was basically for IMF, and we had a lot of beef with that too, because although they put a lot into it, they missed all of the biggest, most important points. And it was, it was an interesting thing because it was at least in depth. They did a lot of good depth on it, but yeah, it was IMF. Kind of strange.
Kind of like a little bit of propaganda in a way.
You think? You think? Okay. So next up, DeFi. Okay. So
Yay.
Alex, good or bad for crypto? And in particular, there is good and bad in DeFi. So what do you think as a whole?
I think DeFi as a whole is much, much healthier than 2017, which was mostly scams. So before, you used to buy a token to access a service, but no token by a company is as liquid as fiat or stable coins. So it made no sense. But today, I think in the past 3 years, we understood that a token that has the future cash earnings and so potential value accrual of a protocol, or later like startups, or like even athletes or people like my personal token stuff, this is the future. And so it's kind of like buying the stock of someone, and that makes so much sense. And so the revolution of DeFi and why it's booming right now is that owning those stocks is like you cannot buy it on the market. Well, you can on secondary market, but the first people to get it are the early users. And that's fascinating, because if you gave early Uber shares to Uber drivers, maybe the growth would have accelerated, and also the Uber drivers at the very start would get richer, which is probably a fair wealth distribution. So I really love what's happening, and like the fact that now we earn a token for using a product instead of just buying it in some nonsensical, inflexible protocol is amazing. And so I really love this. And of course, there's going to be some bad scams, etc. But it's the rates is so much better of good versus bad.
I agree, and I like what you were talking about in using it with your own token as a way to demonstrate, because that's brilliant. And I think I kind of see it as kind of because I've thought for a long time, okay, we have decentralized exchanges, which I would love to see a lot more usability there, and we're getting there, right? But the fact that you could essentially create a independently create a smart contract that would be a trading pair between two different tokens on Ethereum, and that's kind of how I see things. This is kind of yeah, and it's much more than that, because you can do things on top of just trading the tokens. You can trade the interest related, or you can do all types of crazy things. So it's amazing. Okay, next. So for taxes though. How do you guys see this, and what do you think about in terms of the decentralized exchanges? Because a lot of people will be using those to avoid the KYC and therefore the reporting. How does that weigh in?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, you're earning, like you were talking about, earning some of the tokens, and once you earn something, that's a taxable, and it's usually ordinary income. You've provided a service, you've done something, or you're earning interest income on it, so it's taxable. The problem with it is it's ordinary income. So if you have the capital gains and losses that you can kind of control, like doing the tax loss harvesting, once you have that ordinary income, it's ordinary income. It's taxed at your regular tax rate. I noticed that some of them are trying to, rather than give you more tokens, they're trying to increase the value of the tokens that you buy, so that you can later on sell them, and it would be a capital gain or loss. So I could see where that would play out a little bit better in that perspective.
The challenge with keeping up with DeFi is that it's such a broad area of applicable protocols. I mean, you've got the lending protocols, you've got the exchange protocols, you've got all these different taxable types of events. So to speak broadly on tax implications of DeFi would be an entire episode of the show in and of itself, because there's so much unique and amazing things being created there. But it's up to us to keep up with it, and it keeps us employed.
Right. Well, part of it you were talking about with them, trying not to be with the KYC. The IRS is like, they're using chain analysis, and they're trying to follow stuff on the blockchain. So, you can only stay in the shadows for so long before they catch up.
They have the choke points where you exit, right? That you exit dollars. There's going to be very few that you can do that with easily. That's not traceable. But do you see that as a potential to replace? Well, I don't want to get into it. Maybe I don't want to put you on the spot with, because you think about it, if it's fully decentralized, they would have to do other things. They would turn, and I've seen actually, I can't even remember. It was a couple of years back. Someone actually brought up the fact that if everything were taken to its logical conclusion and everything really is decentralized and you really do have privacy and the choke points aren't there, or at least not as much, or the tokens themselves are usable without converting back to cash in a more realistic way, that you would end up with a much more equivalent to the Roman taxation system, where they show up at your door and they look at your house and they say, okay, you're going to owe us about this much, and have a club, right? Right. That's an interesting thing anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I tell my clients who go that are like, they accept cash and they're like, well, I'm cash, I don't have to report it. And I'm like, well, did you put it in your bank account? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, you're not cashed anymore once you put it in your bank account. Or if you're spending more than you're claiming as income, that's going to raise a red flag as well. So
unless you're really, really rich, right?
You also got to think about the value of data, right? And the value of governmental access to data. And the fact that if there is a government-based or government-backed tool from which to engage in an economy, it's going to be asking for more information than you may be willing to give. So you have hopefully an incentive to give more data. Maybe it's a better interest rate on holding your crypto, or maybe it's a transaction fee free network. And so there's always going to be some way that the government tries to pressure you to come back into their world.
Imagine if it was that side of things. I think everybody would be more willing to say, well, okay, if I can have a lower tax rate because I'm going to give you more info, that would be actually an amazing incentive. Jeez. Yeah. Man. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. Yeah. Sloane, you should probably run for office and offer that up.
Yes.
Well, the tax on it as well, because the complexity of it is what scares people. A lot of people aren't filing their taxes because they just don't know how.
Yes, no joke. Rocco, did you lose anything to the massive shrimp collapse that I just saw a tweet about? I have no idea, right?
I did not. No.
Good. All right. All right, good stuff. Okay. Did you make any money on yams though?
I didn't touch it. Like a long time, like 7 or 8 months ago, I went all in on Dragonchain.
Oh, well,
and then this last week, I bought my first little bit of Bitcoin just because.
Wow,
it's going to be the gold standard of digital currency. Right? So I added a little bit of Bitcoin. I mean, 99% of my portfolio is Dragonchain though.
Right on. I've seen your back. You're a Dragon maximalist. I remember that. That's right. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. Next up, Ethereum fees. Okay, so Ethereum fees. Is this sustainable, Alex?
No, it isn't. But this is the role of layer 2, OVM, maybe E2 competitors like Dragonchain. So right now, we don't care too much because of DeFi being transactions mainly by very wealthy people that are willing to pay those fees, and so. As long, by definition, the fees are always sustainable because the people are willing to pay for that. So they find the transaction block space valuable. But yeah, I do of course, we're never reaching consumers. And I think there was a huge spike of whales and very rich people right now because they're the only one left pretty much because of this. And so that makes sense, of course, and we need layer 2, and there's Dragonchain and pretty much all the people from the Reddit Great Bake Off or whatever the name is that are trying to deliver this by Q4, I think, on Ethereum mainnet, like Starkware with DYDX, which is like a trading protocol for perpetuals. They're trying that, or many others. So yeah, I think there's a problem here because, for instance, I have friends founding companies around NFT, for instance, or any other use case that is not DeFi. It's just not sustainable because when a transaction doesn't make you money back, you don't want to pay $8 for just a collector item, right? That should be free to send. So yeah, that makes sense. We need to fix this. Will Dragonchain do it? Maybe, but there's tons of competition here.
Oh yeah, and I think Ethereum themselves they're going to at least partially solve it, but. I don't know what drawbacks they'll accept. I don't, it'll be interesting. And it's I hope they do it well, just because I would like to have more transactions on Ethereum than fewer anyway.
Right. Oh yeah, because since you're building on top of Ethereum, you would like the output to go big so that Dragonchain could technically be even bigger.
Right. Right. And, and we have ways to scale it, but it's a time-based scaling. You have to wait longer to get your transaction on Ethereum, so that we're not, we're paying it, I don't know how many times more now. So how about taxes? Elizabeth Sloane, what do you think? I assume, it probably has never been, it's probably been a rounding error before, but now it's potentially going to be something out of what these people might declare that, they had a loss here and all these fees, particularly if you're doing a lot of trades.
Yeah. Well, if you're incurring those fees and doing your trades, then that's part of the purchase price or the selling cost. We kind of use, if you're paying it in the coin that you're purchasing as a part of the purchase price, but if you're paying the transaction fee in the coin that you're selling, then we show that as part of the selling cost. So we write it off. Although we're kind of taking the stand that if you're using these fees to transfer between accounts, then that's kind of like account maintenance, and that's a investment expense, which really with the U.S. tax law, you really don't get to write that off unless you're a trader, a day trader. But if you're just a casual investor, the fees that you incur transferring between different exchanges and wallets can add up to quite a bit, and then not be able to take any kind of tax deduction whatsoever on them, because they're subject to a 2% floor and itemized deductions, and it gets real complex. So we won't talk that far.
Right. Okay.
I think Phil wanted to say something. No, you're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, we take into account transaction fees, and we take them very seriously. It can be a massive expense.
Yeah.
That goes unnoticed in a lot of other, whether our competitors or people doing taxes themselves. And so we certainly encourage you as an investor or trader or casual to record as much as you can about the fees that you maintain, because there will be positive implications on those expenses if you're keeping good records.
Yeah, and something off chain, I guess you even have exchange fees that would be similar, right? It's not on chain, but you have to track it separately.
Anybody who thinks there's no fees in crypto has never used crypto.
Yeah.
And
IMF.
And those microtransactions is like, I'm just paying 0.0005, but when you multiply by fair market value, that can be $18, $20, $25, $30 for a transaction fee. So it can add up quite a bit. It really can.
And also the price of ETH and Bitcoin are rising as well. So it's like your transaction fee that is paid in those currencies growing over time. But at least it's like super bullish on those chains. I think there's more fees on Ethereum than Bitcoin. So that means that that's a huge flippening. So it means that Ethereum is seen as more valuable than Bitcoin right now. Actually, even Uniswap alone, the exchange, flipped Bitcoin recently. So that means that one application of Ethereum is more valuable than Bitcoin. Bitcoin still wins in volume because it's like large amounts, kind of like safe haven, speculative store value aspect. But in usage every day, Ethereum wins.
Yep. Yeah, and you also have the other interesting point was, I saw this a few weeks back, that Ethereum plus all of the tokens on Ethereum, the market cap is over Bitcoin as well, which is a very interesting point, right? Yeah. And it's, you think about it, it's a carrier for all of those, so it's pretty massively valuable. Really interesting stuff. Okay. Next up, over $1 million in Ryuk, I don't know how that's pronounced it, ransomware was cashed out recently on Binance, and it led to this big article, and I think it was on CoinDesk and maybe Forbes. I read something that. What do you think? Because the point of the article was that shouldn't exchanges be watching these things, because it's definitely traceable in Bitcoin, and they will typically send it to something to split it up, and then it all gets back together into an account. And the fact that it's such large amounts, if it were in the US, you would have definitely some AML stuff kicking in that would have to play in. But what are your thoughts? In particular, and it's a regulatory side, Elizabeth Sloane, on what these exchanges should be doing.
Well, that's the reality is they have software partnerships with the Chainalysis, with the people who go around monitoring the black addresses or the blacked out Bitcoin. And so it's a complete act of negligence for them not to, at the very least, listen to the advice of these people they pay such massive amounts of money to monitor this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I may be in left field here, but it's also Binance is no longer in the US, and we're looking at something happen in the middle of a pandemic. It just makes you wonder if they're trying to use the distraction of everything else that's going on to slip stuff through.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the
So
first
it's
time.
not obvious, okay?
So maybe that went under the radar, like, multiple Bitcoin mixers, but that's kind of like the role of, Chainalysis and others. So yeah, surprising.
Yeah, I was surprised that they've let it go. Maybe they won't now, but there are a lot of other things that I've been surprised about with the
And
exchanges.
so now they can trace back, right? Because they can always see everyone. So
Yeah,
But you also have to wonder, is this article just more food for eyes? Has Binance simply honeypotted them, given them an opportunity to set up an account, provide some basic level of KYC, and prevented them from cashing anything out? Right. So to go to a centralized exchange, and if they're smart enough with this, is a fantastic way for the authorities to be able to grab somebody who's in charge of this ransomware scheme.
That is true. They are behind everything.
It says cashed out, but I don't know what that really means.
That is true. Yeah. Did they actually withdraw the money?
Yeah.
Maybe they converted it to US dollar, but then they say, who are you really? So that's a good question. But in which case it would never still get back to the people who from it was stolen, but it would at least be not usable. Wow. Okay. That's a good one. And Rocco, what do you think? It's
I didn't hear about it, but when I see stuff like this, it makes you wonder, like, what hand in Binance, what do they really know, or what do they allow to happen here? Because it seems like I'm always reading stuff about Binance, and a lot of people at times,
Well, and for me, it's because I've been, I was very attracted to this technology way back because I was already in open source and I love Liberty stuff, right? And so when I saw this technology, this was just like the software version of all of my ideals plugged all in together. It was amazing. And when I see that we have tons of exchanges, they're doing billions of dollars worth of traffic, and they're not actually utilizing the very technology that they're capitalizing on, blows my mind. It's it is radical laziness, at least in the very best case. In the other case, when you get to the other side of it, okay, maybe there's definitely a lot of criminal activity. There have been exchanges in Eastern Europe that have been shut down way back. I luckily cashed out some Namecoin way back on, I can't remember what the exchange was that got closed down later, somewhere in Eastern Europe, right? They were the only ones that still had Namecoin. I was like, holy crap, I have some Namecoin. Let me convert it. And so, maybe that's it too. But, if we at least consider, maybe they're just lazy. So in the very least, they're lazy. Because the tech's there, isn't
well, you think they would use the tech that's making them rich, right? I mean, come on.
That's what I would do, right?
It
takes a little more energy though. So
yeah.
Okay, so we're at 58 minutes, so I'm going to close it out. We skipped a couple questions; you'll never know what they are. And so we're gonna. So Alex, tell us where people can learn about Alex token, where they can buy it, and can we decide what can we decide about your life in the and then what else you want to what else you're working on, if there's anything else that would be interesting to.
Sure. So first, people can follow me on Twitter at Alex Masmej, Masmej. What I'm working on a startup yet to be announced, but it will be kind of neobank style financial service for people to cash out from crypto and in a very easy way. And so, saving, trading, and also exchanging and paying friends. And I think this idea has been tried a while, but tried by many people, but it's still not really, consumer friendly, and the traction still isn't there. Anyway, and so the Alex token, you can do a bunch of things with it. Not control my life anymore. That was just like a 1 month thing, and it was like just my daily habit. It was pretty fun. But you can keep in touch with me and my community and stuff like this, and my future, and kind of like, you can buy a stake of my potential future community, and so the more people buying it might make the price accrue, but there's no like real mechanism of value accrual. So this is not a security, I think. Anyway, yeah, and you can buy it on Uniswap, which is the decentralized exchange on Ethereum. It's pretty easy. It's against the ETH pair, and that's it.
Excellent. All right. So Computus, anything that you're working on that you want? Where can people go to learn about your services? What can what would you want to focus people to look at?
You can find us at computus.io. And we're focusing on helping the exchanges to give full and complete information to their taxpayers, because that's a big pain point for CPAs, for the individuals to be able to file their tax returns, is to have complete and accurate information. So we're working with exchanges on helping them to be able to give that to their clients so they can turn around and give that to their accountants. And we have a tax engine that Sloane can probably tell you more about, but we're trying to take full advantage of specific identification so they can, reduce their tax liability.
That's great. Okay. No, that's really good, especially if you're getting it plugged in, because I can just get a report and
it's API. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, very good. And I forgot to give out a code earlier in the show when we were talking about stuff. We have a Smogist thing going on right now where it's, people draw dragons, and it's a thing that people do on Twitter and Instagram, I think. And small month long. So we have people that have been sending in designs. We're all about dragons. So we're gonna end up selecting some winners, but in the meantime, we have some merch available that are ones that we've had commissioned. D&D style dragons, kind of, right? Pretty cool stuff. So we're gonna give away one shirt. You can pick any one of them you want, and the merch code is SHDL Smogist-DC. Right? And I think you still have to pay shipping, because we haven't figured out how to get the merch system to let us do free shipping. Otherwise, I promise you, it would be free shipping too. But right now, at least, you can get one of the shirts. They're pretty cool. I really like the one on the far left, the brand new one. So, everybody, like and subscribe. Thanks a bunch for joining. And next Tuesday, come back. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks,
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
We had fun. Thanks.
Best of luck, guys.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
And you guys can stick around too.
No,
a lot of times people, I'm done. I'm